Hey class, just wanted to jump in. We're going to talk about some of your assignments this week and then jump into chapters 15 through 17, which is program design. And I've kind of put it all together. So hopefully it'll all make sense. Let me share. So your assignment, I posted it last week, but then you have up until the end of this week to do it. Or in 2 weeks, actually, excuse me. Is this workout card. So if you work with clients or anything like that, this is just one I've created. And I know that you guys might have your own or anything like that. Hopefully this video really walks through how to build it, at least in the format I've done it. If it seems overwhelming, again, please watch the video. Hopefully that'll work because what you do have, and I've also posted an example, which looks a lot like this. And it looks like if you download it, looks like this. So you got your prehabs, you've got your groupings here. And so what I want you to do is you're going to build one block. Now, one block in this case is going to be these 4 weeks. Okay, so if you look at the bottom here, you can see workout block 1, block 2, block 3, all that sort of stuff. I don't need 12 weeks of programming. I just want to see 4. So your program might change week to week. It might stay the same all 4 weeks. I've done 3 days here broken down. But you can do less than that. You can do more than that. You can build it however you wish, but don't just copy and paste all of this. Build your own how you would do it, right? When we talk about it in the programming, you'll see how different people program different exercises, how mine look different than yours or vice versa. And so again, and please watch that video on YouTube, but again, just a quick tutorial. So you can change the groupings of exercises. So I'll show you this first. So I've put together a bunch of different exercises and categorized them. Now, some of these you may not know, and that's okay. If you YouTube them, you'll actually probably see a lot of them, or you can just use the ones that you're comfortable with at this point. Again, the idea is just getting used to building programs. And so all of this gets translated back into here. So let's just say you wanted to do a lower body day. So lower body emphasis, you can come over here, you get this little tab. You can pick, so again, you have push, pull, carry, mobility, activation. So we'll just say a hinge movement, hip dominant. What that's going to do, or what it should do, is change all of these into those hinge movements. Okay. So you have those hinge movements there, and then you can pick from them, right? So you have deadlifts, you have hamstring curls, RDLs, all that sort of stuff. And so you can build your program however you kind of want to in that sense. So if I go knee, now I have my knee dominant movement, so on and so forth. So hopefully that makes sense. And then you'll build it out from there. So week 1 would be this whole column right here, right? So let's say I'm doing, a hanging jump shrug, but, I'm brand new at it. Maybe I'll only do 3 sets of 3. Okay. And then maybe it'll be, so then I would just go here, set 1, set 2, and then set 3, right? And then I don't have a 4th set. So for week 1, I might just be doing that. Right. And you're not doing the program, so you don't have to put in a weight. You can if you want to, or a percentage. And then let's say the next week I do want to add a set, right? So then maybe week 2, I do 4 sets of 3. So then you got set of 3, set of 3, set of 3, and then your 4th set of 3. And then you might go to 5, you might keep it at 4 sets of 3, whatever it is. And then you might deload at the end. Maybe you only do 2 sets of 3, right? So 3 weeks of hard work, and then you deload for a week. And then you're going to come back in with whatever block 2 is. And that's kind of the idea as you're building programs. So you're going to create your own. Again, I separate it in this way. If you want to do it differently, again, kind of build it, play with it as you want. But that's what you'll be working on. That's pretty much the only assignment you have other than some quizzes. So with that, let's jump in to program design. Now, again, what I'm presenting is from the NSCA textbook. But again, I'm also going to give you a few tidbits and maybe tips on just kind of how to program in general, or what I've kind of seen versus the science or like the textbook side versus reality. Maybe you have different things or different comments or questions or things like that. So just kind of know that as we go through. So what are the objectives? You have primary and then you have secondary objectives. So primary objectives of program design. So selecting the exercise modality and type, right? Pick the exercises, warm up and cool down exercises, the order of the exercises, and we'll talk about that order. We talked about it a little bit in the testing protocols, and then determine the intensity, duration, frequency, and rate of progression. So how are you going to progress the exercises? Okay, so that's your primary objectives. Secondary, defining the variables affecting exercise selection. So looking at why did I pick these exercises, right? So the variables that affect that could be the individual's training age, their actual biological age, their training history, things like that. Categorize the types of resistance training. So if you saw on that list I made on the Excel sheet, you had like hinge dominant, knee dominant, push, pull, core. Like that would be, and then everyone categorizes it differently. You might go super simple and just go upper body, lower body, right? Or weak side, strong side, whatever you want to do. So categorize them. So I've done that in my program. Identify which exercises train which muscles. So know what you're training, right? Bench press, for example, is not just chest. Yes, it is a main mover, but you also have triceps. You have your back, actually, your lats. So just understanding what muscles you're training, because again, that ties into why you have it programmed, hopefully in the first place. Compare and contrast speed, agility, and endurance training methods. So they're going to be a little different, right? Power is going to be different than endurance, right? Speed and agility are going to be different than weight room training or long-term endurance training. Determine how often you're going to lift. Again, determine that exercise order. Client's exercise heart rate, right? So if we're going to look at specifically at heart rate, especially for like older clientele or at-risk clientele, we want to know what range they should stay in. And then design a client's resistance training program. So putting it all together. Okay. So that's your primary and secondary objectives. With steps. So again, exercise selection. So picking the exercises, how often you'll do them, what order you're going to do them in, the intensity of those exercises, which is typically based off of a percentage of your 1 rep max. For some of the major lifts. The other one you can use is what's called RPE, or rate of perceived exertion. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. Volume, so how much total. Rest interval, so how long are they resting, whether that's between each exercise or between each set. And then progression, how do I adjust the exercise? Because our body's going to adapt, or the athlete or the individual's body is going to adapt. I need to progress it in some way to create a new adaptation. So it's this never-ending process eventually of progression. In the workout card that I gave you, I used kind of the blocks to do that. So I'll do block 1. I'll usually keep the same exercises for 4 weeks, and then I'll switch up the exercises a little bit in block 2, right? So you get a similar movement, a push, a pull, or whatever, but it changes up the variation. So the body still has to adapt. It's a new stimulus. And then I'll change it in week 3, week 4, and then you kind of interchange things as you go. So those are your program design steps. Some terminology, just to definitions that we need to understand. Some variation, so a purposeful change in the program design variables to expose a client to new or different training stressors, right? We need variation in our workout. It doesn't have to be every day. Some training programs do that. Some keep it very consistent for 4 weeks. Some do it for 8 weeks. Some do it for 2 weeks, and then they'll switch. Again, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You find what works for your client and works for you from a defense standpoint, from defending your program and the why kind of behind it all. Specificity, strategy to train a client in a certain way to produce a particular change or result. So you want to create a program that hopefully affects a specific outcome, right? And we talk about that with training goals or with the client's goals, right? Whether that's weight loss, muscle building, bigger arms, stronger, upper body, stronger lower body. Create a workout that is specific to those goals. Overload, a training stress or intensity greater than what the client is used to, right? So overload sounds bad, but you do need some, it's called progressive overload. So the idea is, if I can bench 135 pounds and all I bench forever is 115, let's say 135 is my max, and all I do is 4 sets of 5 at 115, eventually I'm going to get stronger. But if I only stay at 115, I'm not progressing. I'm not overloading the system. You have to continue to overload the system in order to create an adaptation, right? Think of it as you have to stress the body, hopefully in a short term, acutely, like a workout, to elicit an adaptation, a positive adaptation that we're looking for. Okay. And then progression, the gradual and consistent increase in the intensity of an exercise program. Again, intensity can be weight, which is traditional, but you can also change the type of exercise, right? You can do dumbbell bench press and then go to barbell bench press. You can do a single arm bench press. You can do an incline bench press. You can do a decline. So again, there's a lot of ways you can progress it kind of as you go. And there are different ways to do that. Exercise selection variables. So what's going to determine what you select, right? So available training time per session, right? Well, how long do I have with this client? What is going to show how many exercises I pick? If I only have 30 minutes, I may not be able to do 8 exercises, right? Availability of training equipment for those that work in corporate gyms or have seen a corporate gym. For example, like the squat rack where you would typically barbell squat, there might only be 2 of them and someone might be doing barbell curls in them. And so now you have to change your exercises. So know what's available to you. Exercise technique. This can come from either ability, so an assessment, whether they have, hip issues or shoulder issues, or just no experience in it. Let's say they move really well. They just never squatted under load, for example. Just know that going in, that's going to be something that needs to be learned by the client. And then the type of exercise, right? What are we doing with them? Single leg, both legs, plyometric, strength, power, those types of things. When it comes to resistance training, so resistance training, typically, again, think of it as external load. So something on your back or something you're pressing away from you, a barbell, dumbbell, things like that. We have core movements and then assistant movements. So don't think core right now as like abs, okay? Core, think of it as like big picture exercises. So what are core exercises? They train 1 or more large muscle groups, involve 2 or more joints in the body. They're also known as like structural exercises, and can also be called power exercises if they're moved quickly, okay? So some of these examples would be a squat, right? You're doing hips, knees, ankles, those types of things, right? You're working a lot of joints. A lot of muscle groups are going on, right? Even your core is actually getting engaged there because otherwise you'd fall over, okay? Bench press is going to be one. Multiple joints are moved there. Power clean, right? So now you got a power movement. Those are going to be your core exercises. Assistants are almost the opposite. So you train smaller muscle groups, and usually it's a single joint exercise. So a single joint means it's only affecting one joint, maybe multiple muscles, but a single joint. So an example of that might be like, I'll do it as best I can, like a barbell curl or a dumbbell curl. So if I have a dumbbell in my hand, right, and I'm just that movement right there, right, the only joint I'm affecting is the elbow, right? But I'm working maybe the bicep. I got a little bit of forearm because I'm gripping. But again, simple there versus like a bench press, right? Where I have shoulder, I have elbow, right? I'm using my shoulder blades, my scapula. And so you have a lot more joints moving on and a lot more muscle groups and a lot larger muscle groups. So again, you have core exercises and assistants. And the reason why you need to understand those is because when it gets to exercise order, these terms are going to come back to inform us. Muscular involvement. So I'm going to give, again, this is the knowing the muscles. So I'm going to give some exercises, and then I want you to tell me, or you can pause this and tell me what muscles are being targeted. Okay. So you have a bent over row. You have a preacher's bicep curl, a machine back extension, a machine seated calf raise, flat dumbbell fly, standing calf raise, front squat, leg curl. I might have one more. Pec deck. Okay, so think about what those work. So the bent over row is going to be again, there's multiple muscles, but you can think mainly latissimus dorsi, right? Your wings on the side or on your back. Okay. Preacher's bicep curl, good job. Biceps brachii. Machine back extension, the erector spinae muscles. Machine seated calf raise is actually going to be your soleus. Again, you have your soleus and your gastroc. Seated is going to be different than standing. Flat dumbbell fly, your pec major. Standing calf raise, right? We talked about that. Gastroc. The front squat, it's going to be a lot, but if you want to think about targeting between the back squat and the front squat, your quad's going to get a little bit more on the front squat than your back squat typically is. But again, you are working core, you're still working hamstrings and glutes, but you can get, if you had to pick one muscle, you can pick your quadriceps if you wanted to. Leg curl, you're getting your hamstrings, and then the pec deck, again, your pec major. So again, when you put exercises in, the first question is why? And then if that doesn't tie to a muscle or a muscle group or a joint or something like that, that you don't understand, then maybe don't have it in your program, right? Or if you have a client who's like, I just want to get big biceps, right? It's like, okay, Now, you don't only have to do bicep curls. There are other exercises to do, but make sure you have muscles that are exercises that are involving the biceps in some way, shape, or form. Some plyometric training. So this is maximal force in a short amount of time, right? It can be jumping, standing jumps. It can be a broad jump. You can hop, bounds, which you can see like kind of like long lunges, almost looking like skips, box drills, box jumps, things like that. Depth jumps would be dropping off of something and then jumping or making a move or something like that. A really easy one to introduce if someone's brand new or you want to introduce some plyometric training is jump rope, right? If you think about the contact on the ground, it's very quick, right? It's lower intensity because we're not jumping, trying to jump 40 inches. You're only getting an inch off the ground. But if you want to introduce that, jump rope is another one that you can intro to people with low training ages or have struggle, jumping or overweight or things like that. But you also have upper body, right? Med ball throws. You can do med ball passes, plyo push-ups where you're quick on a bench a couple of times or on the ground. Some people do, you'll see them do the clapping push-ups or something crazy flying in the air. You don't need all that movement. Just getting yourself off the ground is going to generate a lot of upper body power. Trunk plyometrics, right? Think about specifics, right? What would you do for a tennis player, right? What would you do for someone who's trying to improve a basketball rebound, right? Their height, right? So basketball rebound, you might be doing vertical jump or box jumps or something like that. Tennis player, you might want more upper body, right? You might want more side to side. So like skater jumps where they're jumping side to side because they need a quick reaction more to the left and right, right? Basketball, they're going straight up and down for that rebound most of the time. So just teaching their body that. So again, that's your specifics that tie to the goal of the individual or to the program. All right, lateral bounding, and then your double leg jump. Speed training, okay? So we want to use this to improve either speed strength or speed endurance, okay? So SS is speed strength, SE is speed endurance. Speed strength, generating max force with rapid movements. So think like 40-yard dash, 10-yard sprint, 100-meter dash, those types of things. Strength or speed endurance is maintaining speed for an extended duration. So this is how do I keep my top end speed or close to my top end speed for a longer amount of time, right? So what really challenges this is things like the 200-meter, right? Maybe even the 400-meter. Not that you can run the same speed as a 100, but you're really pushing a high end speed for a continuous amount of time. So those are two different things. So depending on who you're working with, right? And depending on what part you want to train, right? If you're only a 100-meter dash, or maybe you're like a 60-meter if it's an indoor track, right? Do I need to train for the 400 if I never do it? It's like, maybe not, but I want to get really good at the 60. So really good at speed strength. Maybe I run the 1, the 2, the 4, and the 800-meter. Then I might do some days where I'm training max force, and that might also match my resistance training. And then I might do speed endurance matching with more endurance-based training. Do you kind of see how you're going to manipulate that? Some things you can do, some drills, right? You can improve your technique and form, right? You'll see a ton of that going on. There's a ton of research on that. The NSCA has good stuff in there as well. Sprint assisted. So if you've seen these before, or you can look it up, this improves your stride frequency. So how quickly you step. This would be something pulling you forward. So think like a band tied to you. And if the camera, so out in front of me, they're trying to pull me, that's going to make me move faster. It's going to make me generate more steps. Sprint resisted is going to improve my stride length. So if something's behind me, like a sled or a partner with a band or anything like that, in order to overcome that resistance, I need to increase my stride length because I'm generating more force into the ground to propel me forward. Okay. So those are just a few things that you can kind of look at with regard to speed training. Now, again, if your client or has no goal of speed training, then you don't need to train it. Just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean you have to focus on it. Focus on what the client wants to accomplish or what you think is best for the client. Aerobic endurance. So this is going to be different than speed. Determining what mode of exercise, again, running, biking, swimming, elliptical, those types of things. What is available? What is the client able to do? What's their preference? What are they going to continue doing, right? If you said we're doing treadmill training, but in your assessment with them, they told you, I hate treadmills, and you keep applying treadmills, they may eventually stop doing it. They may leave you, where all you had to do was change the mode of exercise, and they stick around and they love it, right? So find what works for them that you can really push them on. Client's ability to perform, right? So physical performance and VO2 would be another one. So example, if they've got really bad ankles or they've got really bad hips, running probably may not be their best technique. What can I do otherwise, right? I can put them on a bike. I can put them in a pool, right? I can put them on an elliptical. Those types of things where you can still get a cardiovascular and aerobic endurance, right? But it now fits their ability. And then on the outside of that, you work on improving those poor movements so that maybe they're eventually able to run, right? Things like that. And then again, the goals and for specificity of the training is important. All right, so now we're gonna talk about things like frequency, intensity, and things like that. So frequency, what is it based on? Again, modes of exercise. So how often I exercise is gonna be dependent on what I'm doing with my exercises. How many muscle groups are trained per workout, right? If I do upper body for an hour and a half on Monday, it's probably not gonna be wise to do upper body for an hour and a half on Tuesday, right? Because you just overloaded the system, okay? Volume and intensity. How much did I do and at what intensity? And we'll talk about volume, intensity, and how those are related. The client's training status and fitness level. And some of you have seen this, whether it's for yourself or you've seen people. If someone hasn't trained in, we'll call it 20 years or exercised in 20 years, right? And they're an older individual, and you put them through, even if it's just a general body weight exercise assessment, they might be gassed. They might be tired. They might be sweating. They think their heart's going to explode. So that training status is very low. It would be very unwise to go, all right, cool, I'll see you for the next 5 days, right? They might need more recovery time. Now, eventually they'll adapt, hopefully, and then they'll be able to go 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. So just know that going into it. Their availability to exercise, right? This is one of the first pushbacks you get if you're in a corporate setting. Oh, I'm so busy. I have work. I've got 3 kids and a dog, and, I live this many miles away. Some of that, it's not that those aren't true, but how do you convince them to make time for the important things? 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, right? What is that going to, remember the why that we talked about before? How do we connect it all? Hey, you said you want to be able to, play with your grandkids, live till you can see your grandkids. This is going to help you 1 hour a day, right? 3 with me and then 2 hours on your own doing whatever. That's what we talked about. So again, you're connecting everything together. Physical and psychological demands of their job, again, their activities, et cetera, et cetera. Other things to consider, all training modes. So be open-minded. Resistance training, at least 1 day between the workouts. So like I said, upper body, if you split it upper body, lower body, a typical split might be like a Monday, Wednesday, upper body, Tuesday, Thursday, lower body. Some people might do Monday, upper body, Tuesday, lower body, Wednesday off, Thursday, upper body, Friday, lower body. So you get 48 hours in between your upper and your lower body movements. Okay. So again, just things to think about. Aerobic training, maybe at least 2 days between sessions because of the demand that it has on the body. And then plyometric, if you're really focused on power, again, high demand, right? With that power movement, then maybe 2 to 3 days, right? Depending on what the client's able to do. Exercise order. So I told you this was going to come back. So just like in the assessment stage, where we actually worked on non-fatiguing or at rest, and then you built up to like those long endurance tests. So like body fat percentage would be first, and then like anaerobic threshold would be like your last exercise, because you don't want to tax yourself and then go into the rest of the assessments. Exercise order has a guideline too. So power, core, and then assistance. Okay. Because again, power is going to be one of your most taxing. So in this example with 3 exercises, I would do a hang clean first, finish all my sets there. Then I would go into a bench press, which is going to be a core exercise. And then an assistance exercise would be the biceps curl, right? I wouldn't want to do bicep curls, fatigue my biceps, and then go try to pull something off the floor, right? Like a hang clean, or off the rack, like a hang clean, right? Let the single joint exercise be last. The accessory movement is probably the typical term we hear a lot, where power and core are going to be more of your home-based, strong development exercises. Okay. Another variation is alternating between pushing and pulling exercises. Okay. I use those terms typically for upper body movements. Okay. So instead of doing a bench press into a push-up, into a, incline press, into a dumbbell press, right? alternate between them so you actually get a little bit of rest between the push and the pull. Okay, so bench press, then go into a lat pull down, which is going to be a pulling exercise, shoulder press, and then a bent over row is going to be a pulling exercise. So you can alternate between those. Then you can also alternate between upper and lower body. So if you do a more full body day of training, then maybe not do all your upper body and then all your lower body. Do a bench press, then a squat, then do a bent over row, and then a split squat, something like that, so that you're not overloading, you're not taxing to the point of you can't complete the workout or it's not as effective. Okay. And then the last thing, supersets and compound sets. These are thrown around a lot. Most people think supersets are like a push and a pull back to back really quickly. You can do that, or excuse me, they usually think it's the same thing. So like bench press into a push-up, right? Press. Supersets are actually opposite. So push-ups and like a dumbbell row, right? So you push first and then you pull, that would be considered a superset. A compound set is when it's the same. So a compound set would be like a dumbbell bench press going right into push-ups, where the fatigue is going to be a lot higher because you just work that muscle. So that's a compound set. And then you have superset. Again, things to change up or vary your workouts. So here's an example. So you have a bicep curl, a power clean, a bench press, leg curl, and bent over row. So what would be the correct sequence if we follow the power core assistance guideline? Okay, so you have those, and then you have your answers on the right corresponding to the exercise. So again, bicep, power clean, bench press, leg curl, bent over row. Again, if you don't know the exercises, look them up. Make sure you know them. Again, don't pick things you don't know. So what would the order be? Hopefully, you're looking at A or the first one. So 2, 3, 5, 4, 1. So let's look at that. Again, power clean is there. So that helps with power. So you know power is going to go first. And then there are no other twos here. So that really gives it away. But if there were, then we go, okay, well, what's next? So power and then core. Core exercises here are either going to be your bench press or your bent over row. In this case, it doesn't really matter which one. So you should see a 3 or a 5, which we do. And then you would see the other one right after that. So 5, which we do. And then what are you left with? You have leg curl and then biceps curl. Those are single joint exercises, right? The leg curl does technically work bigger muscles. So that might be why they put it in at the 4th exercise, and the biceps can be the smallest muscle. And then so we conclude with that one. So again, that's, if you're building an exercise program, or at least for this NSCA exam, that's the kind of thing that we're doing. Here's an example of some common exercises. This is in your textbook, I believe. And it tells you what it is. So back squat, they consider it core, multi-joint, and structural. Biceps curl, they consider it assistance, single joint. Dumbbell lateral raise, that would be a dumbbell out to the side, holding a dumbbell. Assistance, right, single joint. Barbell bench press, core, multi-joint, and so on and so forth. So you can look at these when you're building a program, and even if you just use these exercises to start for your workout card, it's like, okay, what is my order going to be? Should I do, is a back squat core or assistance? All right, it's core, so I can put it towards the top, right? Things like that. Exercise intensity, I believe is what this says. Yep. So with resistance training, okay, you need to, so again, intensity with with core exercises is usually based off of measuring a 1 rep max. And the directions to do that are in chapter 11, okay, with the assessment stuff. That's with healthy, uninjured, intermediate, or advanced resistance training clients, people that have exercised before, that have done the exercise, whether it's a squat, a bench press, something like that. You can measure the 1 RM, okay? For other clients that are either unhealthy, are injured or coming off an injury, or they're beginners, right? There's no point if someone's never back squatted to test their 1 RM back squat. That could be dangerous, and we don't want to do that. So then we make estimates, and there's a rep max chart that in your book that tells you, okay, so if, let's just say we did, so you can see 6 to 12 on here. So not nearly as dangerous as 1, right? Well, let's say they did 6 reps of barbell bench press and they couldn't do any more. So they were like 4, 5, and they just get it up at 6. So that's their 6 rep max. Well, what's great is the NSCA has created a chart so you can look at that 6 rep max and then go, okay, their estimated 1 rep max is X. Okay. And then you can build a workout based off of this estimated 1 RM, even though you didn't test for that 1 RM, right? So you might go in your workout, you might do 3 sets of 10, right? Well, at what weight should I do the 10 reps? Go back, look at their estimated 1 RM, and then that'll give you an idea of the percentage of weight they can do at 10 repetitions, right? So if they're, let's just do 100 pounds. So they do 100 pounds or they do 60 pounds, right? Or 100 pounds is the measured 1 RM. Okay, we'll go with that. And then you want to do 70% of that for 6 repetitions, right? Then 70% of 100 is 70 pounds. So you're going to use 70 pounds of weight. The guessing's been taken out, but you do have to do more on the front end of assessment and figuring out those estimations, okay? With aerobic endurance training, heart rate is usually the indicator of intensity level. So with resistance training, it's the weight you're doing and how it feels. And then heart rate is usually for aerobic endurance training. There's 2 ways to figure out your max heart rate. So again, think of it as like 1 RM, so to speak. You have your age predicted. This is the most basic one. This is 220 minus their age. Okay, we'll give you that. And then you multiply that by your percentage of intensity, and that's your target heart rate. So for example, I'm 30 years old. So 220 minus 30 would give you 190. So in theory, my max heart rate is 190 beats per minute. Okay. So that's my max. So you can't train for that for very long. So maybe I'm trying to do endurance at 75% of that. Okay. So then I would take 190. Sorry, I got my calculator right here. 190 times 0.75. And then my target heart rate for my workout, let's say I have an Apple Watch or a chest strap or anything like that, is 142.5. So between 142 and 143 is where I would want to keep my endurance training. So I might be on a treadmill, I might be running, I might be on a bike. That might be my training adaptation, or that's my training heart rate goal. Okay, so that's what the age predicted. We're going to do the other one, this Carbonin method, and then we'll see if it's different at all. So using this one incorporates resting heart rate if you have it. So resting heart rate ideally would be like, what are you at complete rest? So like right when you wake up in the morning, can I measure my heart rate? Now there are great tools now that measure that. I have an Oura ring, OURA, which measures a bunch of things, including my resting heart rate. But again, you don't want to guess those things either. So same style to start. So 220 minus age. So we'll do it with me. So 30 equals 190. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your 190 or my 190. So that's the APM-HR, your age appropriate. And then you're going to subtract your resting heart rate. So mine is about 52, 53. So 190 minus 53 gets you 137. That's called my heart rate reserve. Okay, HRR. Then you take that number and you multiply that by your percentage, and that equals your client's target heart rate. So let's say I want to stay at 75. So at 137 times 0.75. And now I'm at 102. Hopefully I did that right. 137 times 0.75. Yep. 102 to 101 or 103, excuse me. Way lower, right? Almost a 40 beat per minute decrease. Okay. So just be aware of that. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I forgot to add one more thing. So then you add back, this is my fault. So it's heart rate reserve times that percentage, add back your resting heart rate. That's my fault. So 102 to 103, and then you add, what did I say? 137 or 53. Sorry. And now we're back up. So that's what I forgot to add in there. So, but the Carbonin method, you can look that up. The equation's there. It's on Google. It's in your book as well. Sorry. So those are 2 different methods. Again, quickly, you're developing something. Age predicted is okay. Just be prepared to adjust it, right? If you're training someone who's highly trained, they're probably going to have a higher target heart rate or a higher max heart rate. If they're very undertrained, they might have a much lower than what is expected. So you kind of have to talk to your client to figure out what the best strategy is. Volume. So this is how much work is performed in a workout. Okay. If you're doing it with resistance training, it's your sets and your reps. Okay. Or you can think about it as load as well, if you want to add in load as well. So an example would be, let's say you did 3 sets of 10 of an upper body movement and 3 sets of 10 of a lower body movement. And that was it. You just did 2 exercises. The volume of training, okay, however you want to look at it, was 30 repetitions of upper body, 30 repetitions of lower body, right? You just do 3 times 10 in that case. Now, if I was doing, let's say I was doing all upper body and I did 3 sets of 10 for 3 exercises. So 3 times 10 is 30, plus 3 times 10 is 60, plus 3 times 10 is, so I did 90 repetitions, okay? Now, what you can also add is the load, so the poundage that you use. So let's just say I did, we'll go back to single exercise, 3 times 10 at 100 pounds. So that's 30 repetitions at 100 pounds, right? So 30 times 100, 3,000 pounds were moved total. That's my volume of workout if I add in the load, right? So we're looking at total volume of work, not just what I did for one set, okay? When you're building your volume, okay, endurance is typically higher repetitions, right? Hopefully that makes sense, right? If we're trying to increase the longevity of the exercise or the muscles, right, we need higher repetitions, more time under tension, so to speak. If it's strength, we typically go fewer, right? I'm trying to exert as much force in a short amount of time, 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 rep, whatever it is. Okay. So there's an inverse relationship between these things, because obviously the less repetitions you do, the higher the intensity you can go, right? I can bench press 300 pounds one time. I can't do that 12 times, right? If I'm going to do 12 reps, I have to decrease my intensity so that now I'm doing less weight for more repetition. So these are inversely related. Typically, you play with volume and intensity like this, okay? Plyometrics, if you include foot contact, so that's jump rope, that's box jumps, things like that, we want to stay around 80 to 100 contacts in a workout, okay? In aerobic training, you're going to look at duration. So greater intensity equals shorter duration. Think about it like this. If I'm going to sprint 50 meters as hard as I can't do that long, right? The workout's going to be shorter, right? I'm focused more on short-term stuff. If I'm going to go run a mile and a half, right? Less intensity, right? Whether that's your heart rate or anything like that, right? Lower intensity, longer duration. Short duration, higher intensity. Hopefully that makes sense when we're talking about it. Progressing. So how do I progress these exercises, right? Gradual and consistent increase in the intensity of an exercise program. So this can be load, right? You can keep the repetitions the same, but now I increase, some people will say every week increase 5 pounds, right? So if I was doing 100 pounds, now I'm going to do 105 the next week. Then I'm going to do 110 the week after that, okay? Maybe it's volume. Instead of 3 sets of 10 at 100, I'm going to do 3 sets of 12 at 100, okay? Or I'm going to do 4 sets of 10. So I had a whole nother set of 10 at 100 pounds, okay? Frequency, maybe I go from 2 days a week to 3 days a week, 1 day a week to 2 days a week. Or the duration, maybe instead of working out for 30 minutes, I go to 40 minutes, okay? So you add in, you're able to fit more exercises in or more sets or reps, okay? Resistance training, again, so here's your, if you're gonna change your resistance training, 2.5 to 10% load progression, okay? Usually as you're changing. There's one thing called the 2 for 2 rule. So if the client can perform 2 more reps than prescribed, the load can increase for that exercise. So this is where that kind of rate of perceived exertion comes in. So if I was doing 3 sets of 10 and the first week, they do 10 and they can't do any more. They're maxed out. They can't do 11 reps. And then next week they do 11 reps. We're going to keep the weight the same for the third week. Third week comes along, they do 12 reps. So they've done 2 more than what I asked, or they could have done 2 more, right? Then I know I can increase the weight the next set, right? Because of they've been able to show 2 weeks ago, you could only do 10. Now you could do 12. It's time to increase the weight, okay? Plyo or speed, you increase the speed or the complexity of the drills. Single leg movements are typically more complex than both leg movements. You might run it faster, right? You might have been teaching it the first time, half speed jogging. Maybe now think of like an agility drill. one we use in sports a lot, right, is a coach blowing a whistle, right? But you can see the coach. So there's a difference between seeing the coach and then you assuming or guessing with the whistle. And then maybe the next time you do a drill, he stands behind you and then claps. So you don't know when it's going to happen. So that increases the complexity of the drill. Okay. Things like that. Aerobic endurance, again, if you increase the frequency, intensity, or duration, a max of 10% of the time. Typically not all three of them. Pick one and then increase that. Okay. So going from 1 day a week to 2 days a week, or intensity, 65% to no more than 75% of their heart rate, things like that. And then warm up and cool down. Warm up, again, you can start with passive. So things like adding heat, hot showers, getting a massage, something like that. Then you're going to get into general. So think like just jogging for a while. You might be on a bike, a stationary bike, jumping rope. Again, you're trying to increase the temperature of the body and of the muscles. Then you can get real specific. Some people might call this a dynamic warm-up, where there's a little more movement specificity involved. Again, it might be you're teaching a new exercise with load. So then you're going to introduce it with body weight to start. So it might be a squat, right? And you're like, hey, we're going to squat body weight just to get warm, right? Doing push-ups to prepare for pressing movements, things like that. Should be customized again to each client. And then you don't want it to last too long, but again, between 5 and 15 minutes total. It might take really long the first day. When I was teaching athletes, it took 45 minutes to teach the warm-up because I was detailed in what I wanted accomplished. But you do that work on the front end, and then it's really easy on the back end because they know what they're doing. They know what I expect. You can do the same thing with your clients. Okay. And a lot of times you can use the warm-up. You can see, wow, they're really deficient in single leg balance, or they can't get up and down off the ground as well as they thought, right? Using that as an assessment tool. And then a cool down, keeping the body moving a little bit. We don't want to just go 60 to 0. So 5 to 15 post-workout cool down if possible. Again, performed at a lower intensity. You can think like walking on the treadmill. It might be some type of stretching, something lighter than what they were doing before. Again, allowing that body to gradually return to that resting state. So don't forget about that cool down. And that's it. I know that's a lot to kind of go over, go back and read those things, read your textbook. So apply the program design and the exercises you learned last week to kind of build your program, to build your workout card. Again, it's an Excel spreadsheet. Play with it. And then I just need once you kind of mess around with it, save it, and then upload it as a file. If you have any questions, please email me and I'll do my best to respond to you, or text me and I'll respond to you. So that's it for today, and I will see you guys soon.